What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It is Thursday, February 18th, 2021. I'm looking forward to tomorrow, seeing what the markets are going to do. Will they pull back? They tried to pull back today, and they sort of stabilized and then actually ended up going up. Right now, the futures markets, they're down a little bit as I speak right now. I mean, like 0.03%, 0.06%. But the markets are still kind of teetering at all-time highs. So I'm personally kind of interested to see what is going to happen tomorrow. We had such a big rally last Friday. Will we get a sell-off tomorrow? A lot of the stocks that I was following, like Square and PayPal, these are just the stocks that I personally like to trade. They did pull back, pretty substantially, but then they stabilized and actually went back up. Square and PayPal fell into a daily demand zone, so they hit demand and went back up. So we'll see what happens, but I do think the stock market. My general feeling is that the stock market is at very dangerous valuations, and. Real quick before we get into the news, I want to talk about the jobless claims, and we're also going to talk about weather, all right, extreme weather and being prepared for it. But before we do, the first thing I want to say is, if you do enjoy this channel, if you enjoy the videos, the best way that you can support the channel is by giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel, and leaving feedback in the comment section down below. Always appreciate hearing back from you guys, and I appreciate everybody that's been supporting the videos by liking, sharing, subscribing to my channel. Big shout out to everybody across social media, everybody on Patreon and PayPal, and in all the ways that you guys support the channel. Thank you very much. So let's go ahead and talk about the jobless claims. When I see this number, which could get revised, right? It could, I guess, it could get revised and go lower, but it also could get revised and go up higher. 861,000 new jobless claims were filed the previous week. Last week, the first official number was like 793,000. And then they revised that number, and it was more like 820,000. I forgot the exact number. But this week, this 861,000 surpassed expectations. Okay, it was a lot worse than what Wall Street was anticipating. And this is for the week, ending February 13th. And so, to go from 765,000, which was the expectation, which is still horrible, but this is almost 100,000. This is like almost 100,000 more than what was expected. This is very, very serious. The jobs market is not good. And really what the jobs market is for most Americans, it's these service jobs. These jobs that maybe 20 years ago were thought of as like a part-time gig. They were thought of as maybe a job a college student would take, or, just somebody would be working these jobs part-time, like at Taco Bell or Walmart. But now these are the career opportunities for Americans, or driving Uber or something like that. These are career opportunities, right? You're expected to go and, take a job at Taco Bell, and you're going to love it. You're going to be happy about it because you're going to be getting paid $15 an hour 5 years from now, right? And this is why they want to hike up the minimum wage, because these jobs have to support people's lives. They have to support families working at Taco Bell or, flipping burgers at Wendy's. So this is very, very serious. And the U.S. jobless claims number, it's been a big theme with my content on this channel because I think it's an indicator, right? It's an indication of where this economy really is at. We really can't trust the numbers of the stock market. We know they're manipulated. And we can't even really trust these numbers. I think the real number is probably well over 1 million. Jobs are just disappearing every single week. But when you think about the average, right, on a monthly average, this is 3-4 million jobs a month that we're talking about that are just gone. They're never coming back. Nobody Nobody on CNBC talks about this. Nobody in the mainstream media really questions, how are these jobs? How are we going to get these jobs back? What are we going to do to employ all these people? And what are Americans going to do for money? No, nobody really asks these questions. They just talk about the reopening phase and the V-shaped recovery and stock market at all-time highs. And all that is really nonsense. The real indicator is the jobless claims and other numbers like this. It's a big red flag for me. It's a big red flag that the economy is not doing well at all. So wanted to get that out of the way. I figured it was going to be well over 800,000. I think that was actually what I was predicting a couple of days ago. Next week, what is it going to be? 900,000. And again, these numbers could be off. And I'll remind you, even Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, has said that he said recently, I think last week, he made public statements saying that the unemployment number of 6% was wrong. Unemployment is much higher than that, probably way over 10%. I mean, this is coming from the Fed chairman. So, that being said, I definitely don't trust this number. So we talked about the economic news. The gas prices, natural gas has been rallying. Okay. The reason being is all of these Arctic blasts, these ice storms that are hitting not only Texas now, but the eastern seaboard. We're supposed to get very, very cold and very dangerous weather on the East Coast in the next couple of days. But I want to talk about what's going on in Texas because you're talking about 26 million people without power, 26 million people without running water right now as we speak. The media is trying to blame the governor of Texas, right? Obviously, being a Republican, he's going to be a target. But and they're trying to say that, if he had only implemented the, Green New Deal policies that California has, Texas would have been fine. When it comes to the weather itself, right, they're trying to convince us that this is global warming, right? That the climate is getting warmer, so it's causing ice storms in Texas. That's the logic here. That's what they're trying to get us to believe. I personally, now I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole right now, but I personally would not be surprised if a lot of the weather that we're seeing is either manipulated weather or engineered, right, man-made in some way. I don't need to get into all of this, the aerosol injections, right? We don't got to talk about this right now, but that's sort of that's what I'm looking at, and that's I think these ice storms, especially in a place like Texas, big red flag that something's not right. But they're going to gaslight us, right? They're going to talk about global warming and talk about how you need to be removed from your car because it's your fault. But that being said, I've been predicting this for a very long time, like the power outage stuff, the mass-wide power outages. I've been predicting this for a very long time. Now, every time I was talking about it, the example that I would use for a state would be like upstate New York, maybe the Dakotas, maybe Illinois. I don't think I've ever used Texas as an example, but this just makes it even more this makes it even more real that it's happening in Texas. So, ice, and whether or not the ice storms are actually the cause of the power failures, who really knows? But I think we're going to see more of this kind of thing, right? Mass-wide power outages. And if they don't blame it on ice, they'll blame it on wind. They'll blame it on the fire, right? In California, it was the fires and the wind. We got to shut your power off for a week because forest fires, right? The East Coast is going to get hit. So I've been warning about this because I knew this was coming, right? This is the next phase of the horrors, right? 2020 had its own horrors, but 2021 is going to bring horrors that make 2020 look like a summer camp. And part of these horrors, I think, are going to be the mass-wide power outages, just making it, reducing the reduction in the standard of living for Americans. We're watching this unfold, okay? It hasn't really ever been this big of a problem before, right? I mean, there's been ice storms. There's been all kinds of storms. But, 26, I mean, just think about that. 26 million people out of power. There's more people than in the county of LA. It's more people in New York. It's probably about as many people as in the county of LA and New York combined. And they have no water. They have no power. They're melting snow to get water, right? So this is why it behooves all of us to be prepared, okay? And a lot of people in our immediate surroundings are going to say, oh, that's never going to happen, right? Even if the power went off, right, it would only be 3 or 4 days at the most. But these people are now going on nearly a week with no power and no sign of when the power is going to be turned back on or the water. So you want to have gallons of water at your place of residence, and even if you do, that's not to say that it will even be enough, right? You could have 20, 30, 40, 50, you could have 100 gallons of water, but if the power is off for months at a time, right, this could get very, very bad. And I think it's also to do with the the economic situation. Essentially, I guess what I'm trying to say is what I see is some kind of cold civil war. And it's a civil war, like almost like an attack against the average population, right? It's against the average American. And part of this process, right, we talk about the exportation of the middle class, how that's manifesting itself in the U.S. jobless claims, right? You can see the exportation of middle class by, the million plus jobs every week that are being lost. But you start to see this kind of thing, right? The power outages, the really bad weather, and it really makes you wonder if there's something by design that's going on here, right? So I don't want to get too conspiratorial with it, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, especially here on YouTube. I mean, it's unfortunate that I cannot even express myself freely on the internet anymore. I mean, that's concerning enough, but a lot of the things that we're seeing, whether it's economic or weather related, I think a lot of this stuff is more connected than most people realize. So stay safe out there. Make sure you're prepared. It's one thing to be economically or financially prepared, or at least, getting towards that goal. But you want to be physically prepared in the event of mass-wide power outages, because it's going to happen. It's already happening in Texas. It's going to happen on the East Coast. It's going to happen again in California. And so you want to be able to survive that and not have to rely on the outside world, day 2 into the power outage. You want to be able to survive on your own. So make sure you have water. Make sure you have food. It doesn't, it costs what? A couple of bucks to every time you go to the store. Grab an extra can of tuna. Grab an extra can of soup. Things like butter, right, can last for months in a freezer area. You want to make sure you have protein, water, some way to sustain yourself through an event. Because in Texas, if this isn't SHTF, what does it look like? If 2020 wasn't SHTF, what's it going to look like? It's not going to look like the movies, right? We are already sort of experienced this. We're already experiencing the collapse. The currency reset has already happened. The economic collapse has already happened. And we have already entered sort of a cold era civil war, okay? And that's all I'm going to get into it. That's as far as I'm going to get into it today. But let me know what you guys are looking at. What's on your watch list? What are you, looking at economically speaking? But also, what's going on in your area of the country, right? How is the weather? Do you think your neighbors are prepared? What kind of jobs do you see people working? What is going on in your local economies? I really want to know, because that's how we can really figure out the state of the country, is by talking to each other and trying to gather information. social media, big tech doesn't want us doing that, but I definitely encourage people to, leave your 2 cents down below. So thank you very much for spending a few minutes with me this evening. I'm going to wrap it up because I don't want this to go too long. And with that, just give the video a like. It's much appreciated. Subscribe to the channel. And thank you to everybody that's supporting me in all the ways that you do, supporting this content. So until next time, as always, God bless.